Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here in the overflow room with the greatest recordings ever. Yes, I have many of them down here. And since I was down here, I figured, well, what the hell? Let's do it. Today, we're talking about Don Giovanni. Oh, goodness. Has there ever been an opera that's had more good recordings than Don Giovanni? There are lots of them. Really, really lots of them. But I wanted to talk about this one in particular. John Eliot Gardiner with the Monteverdi Choir and the English Baroque Soloists. It's not the Orchestra Révolutionnaire et Romantique, not that anymore. The English Baroque Soloists. Now, as you may know, Gardiner has had a bit of a scandal lately because he supposedly slapped a singer or something when they were doing something because he's a real jerk, and like so many of these folks, and so he resigned and he had to do an apology, and in real life he couldn't have cared less, and he's rich anyway, and it doesn't make any difference to him. But he's done some wonderful, wonderful work, and we're actually still waiting for a big box of his Phillips recordings, which are now on Decca. That would be wonderful because that's where a lot of his best work is. However, for Archive, he did all the major Mozart operas, and he did them really, really well. I mean, they really are one of the most distinguished elements of his discography. And when it came to Don Giovanni, none of his recordings are better than that. Now, Don Giovanni is not, it's an interesting work in that it is both a singer's opera and a conductor's opera. Normally you wouldn't expect, especially from this period, the opera to be about the conductor. But Mozart is one of those composers who writes so much music into his operas, and there's so much into the characterization that it's carried by the orchestra and the accompaniment, that the conductor has really a lot to say in how successful the performance is. And this is just a rip-roaring, dramatic, exciting recording with a real ensemble cast. I mean, there aren't a lot of huge names here. Think about it. Don Giovanni is Rodney Gilfry. Il Commendatore is Andrea Silvestrelli. Donna Anna is Luba Orgonasova, who's very good, by the way. I mean, they're all very good, but Don Ottavio is Christophe Prégardien, and Donna Elvira is a Charlotte Margiono. Leporello is Edelbrando D'Arcangelo. I mean, some of these names will be familiar to opera people and maybe some others. Mazzetto is Julian Clarkson, and Zerlina is Ariane James. And so we're not talking about the classic version that I spoke of previously as a reference recording, like the Cellini, with all the big names in it and all that stuff, because all the great singers sing Mozart and sing Mozart's operas. But, Gardiner was a tyrant, let's face it, and in his own tyrannical way, he forged a wonderful cooperative cast that really, I think, conveyed his vision of the opera. His vision of the opera is a scary one. It's exciting. It's tremendously dramatic. It really makes an excellent case for period instruments, particularly in the scenes with the Commendatore, where the trombones come in. You really hear the timbral difference. Mozart uses clarinets, for example, in his love music, the trombones for the supernatural. I mean, there's a lot of that kind of characterization in Don Giovanni. And Gardiner really, really makes the most of it. I mean, the scene where Giovanni gets sent to hell is amazing. The scene in the cemetery is really, really creepy. The Act 2 finale, I mean, it's just really, the whole thing is astonishing. The ballroom scene, when you've got all the separate orchestras playing the different tunes and all this stuff is going on. Gardiner knits it together so well. And he has the singers really playing off of each other and responding to what's happening in the dialogue. It's very funny. When I first saw Don Giovanni, if you look at what the scenes are, I mean, there's not a lot of scenery in Don Giovanni. There's not a lot of dramatic happening. The scene is a street in Seville, or it's a ballroom. I mean, and there's the cemetery. I mean, it's not a lot of moving around. Let's put it that way. The drama really is interior drama. It's the singers, it's Mitrati, it's Dalla Sua Pace, it's the singers really expressing emotion from the bowels of their being. And Don Giovanni himself is such an interesting character because he's a cipher. he has virtually nothing to sing. I mean, in terms of like big arias, he does the Champagne aria, and there's a duet or two, but essentially, the other characters are reflected by him. And so when you do a performance of this opera, and Gardner's clearly thought about it quite a bit, you need to really have a cast that understands where they belong in the progression of the plot and how to project it through the arias, and he certainly gets it, and so do his singers. So I really am happy to be able to talk about a performance of this opera, which is recent, relatively speaking. I mean, this was recorded in 1995, so recent, so 20, 30 years ago. That's recent. I said 30 years ago, holy cow, can you believe it? Okay, it's still a modern, digital, period instrument Mozart recording that's unquestionably one of the greatest recordings ever. It really is. It's a wonderful, wonderful Don Giovanni. Exciting, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat from the very beginning all the way through to the end. And you can't really ask for more than that. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.